Say hi.
Hi, Jason. How you doing? Welcome to the city of Mount Pearl and the Rocket Bakery, and good to see your listeners tuning in.
I've been in Mount Pearl before. We've talked about this.
Sure. Yeah.
I say that I live in Mount Pearl.
You do? Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
Danny Breen says that I live in St. John's.
Well, I kind of call it Mount Pearl with green signs.
It's exactly what it is, and everybody knows it.
Yeah.
And as we get into our little in-depth interview here, I think we'll see what we're talking about there when the whole state of emergency and the difference between St. John's and Mount Pearl, and how if I was a by the book, letter for letter, cross your T's and dot your I's kind of guy, then I would have been stranded in my house
We'll
for
have
longer.
a jurisdictional discussion whenever you're ready.
That's perfect. So when I asked you to sit down and have a conversation about what's going on in Mount Pearl recently, about Snowmageddon, about the logistics around it, I told you, I'll come to you. Where do you want to do it? You picked Rocket.
Yeah, Rocket Bakery, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
why Rocket?
Well, Rocket is part of the community, part of the business community here in Mount Pearl, and it's a bit more pedestrian, say, than City Hall. And I thought it'd be nice to do the interview here because I think the focus of our chat's going to be about the community, not just how the city reacted to the 93 centimeters of snow that we got on that weekend, but also how the community stepped up. The business community, the volunteers, as well as the all the sports groups that we have here in Mount Pearl. And there's one thing I'm guaranteeing you this year: we're going to have snow for the Frosty Festival.
Yes, we are. We definitely are. And you got your Frosty Festival.
Yeah, we're gearing up.
I don't have one of those. How come I don't have one? I've hosted it like 3 years.
You are hosting the Parade of Lights next Wednesday.
I am.
And you just put I think you're having a conversation with the Frosty board this afternoon, and they supply all they organize the festival.
So
and
what
they supply some of the swag to some of the members of council and the volunteers.
So that's who I got to hit up to get a sweater.
Rogers is a sponsor. Absolutely.
So let's talk about the 93 centimeters, which, by the way, means that, well, whatever way you look at it, Mount Pearl either won or lost the Snowmageddon raffle because we got the most.
We did.
By a significant amount.
And we had a point in the evening that Friday where we had to shut down the snow clearing. And that ultimately sets you back even more in terms of trying to keep the streets safe and clear. Visibility. The operators were reporting around 10, 11 o'clock that they couldn't see ahead of themselves, and it was important to us that we got all the crew back to the depot so where they would be safe and sound. And we knew later on Saturday morning, the wind was going to die down a little bit and the amount of snow was going to fall, right? So the most important thing was to get the crews back home. We declared a state of emergency. We had...
what does that mean?
Well, for us...
People have been throwing it around for like a long time, but I don't know if anybody really can define like what state of emergency means.
Well, it's not linked to taking our equipment off the road, first of all, but what it meant was we wanted to put safety above everything else, and we wanted to make sure all emergency services could function. The operators were reporting back to us that the roads were very narrow, visibility was very limited, so we wanted to get as many people home safe and sound, get them off the road, make sure all businesses were closed, and get folks home. So we did that in conjunction with our public works staff, and they worked really hard over the next few days and weeks, right, to get the city straightened away. But the key thing was health and safety. But we were also coordinating with all the emergency services throughout the storm, and in the day or two that followed. For example, Eastern Health had dialysis patients that they needed to get out on Sunday. So they were in contact with us, trying to make sure that the roadway to where that person lived, would be free and clear, so they could get those patients out. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then our focus when we got the crews back on the road early in the morning on Saturday, the storm was still ongoing, but it was safe enough. Yes, it was safe enough to get out and start clearing again. But again, the perspective at that point in time, with the state of emergency still on, is safety first.
Yes.
And of course, then we're working with the police, the fire services, the ambulance services, and a couple of nice stories that I overheard from our public works people were because there's an ambulance center or station, I should say, here in Mount Pearl on Topsail Road.
Yeah.
So the ambulance had to get to Cowan Heights to pick up a patient to take to one of the hospitals. So our loader, our crew would go out there and accompany the ambulance so we could get them into Cowan Heights, and then the ambulance got to where the the patient was, let's say, and there was a City St. John's loader there waiting to basically guide the ambulance out to the hospital. I spoke with Mayor Breen, French, Scott, and Bobbitt, every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
And Mayor Breen and I had a conversation, too, about their need for equipment.
Yeah.
And we never got a request after from St. John's. Now, they did have their hands full.
Yes.
And I've got a lot of respect for Mayor Breen and what they were going through with the downtown. I do, too, to be honest. In this particular storm, once we had started pushing back with the blades on the plows and our loaders, we couldn't push it any further. We couldn't make the roads any wider. So the key thing for this storm, with the amount of snow we had, and keep in mind too, we had snow. Our crews were working since Christmas Eve, basically, to get the city cleaned up. We had multiple smaller storms leading up to the big one. But this was all about snowblowers. We have 4 snowblowers here in Mount Pearl.
I love watching those
and our
things.
Mechanics kept them going. They were as key to the whole operation, along with municipal enforcement.
Those machines are built to run 24 hours a day.
They are, but as we speak, for example, there's one of our blowers is down for a bearing replacement. So it's not one of those 1-hour jobs. It'll be done. It'll probably take about 12 hours to do. So a big shout out, not just to the operators, but also to the mechanics and the,
so are they
supervisors.
Staff? Are they city staff?
They are. Yes, they're up at the depot. And they're integral to the entire operation, because there's always vehicles going back that have a broken hose, or there's something wrong with some hydraulics or a piece of equipment. And normally the mechanics can turn them around pretty quickly. The volunteer community here in Mount Pearl really stepped up.
I saw so many stories.
There were so many stories on social media about, there was a dozen people that went up and did about, 10 driveways that night. And a lot of those people were vulnerable people. The Army came in and helped a lot of our vulnerable people too. And you're talking snowbanks that are 8 feet high sometimes. So our crews since January 17th have been operating 24/7. And the nice part of that too, in terms of the support, is the business community stepped up and they provided food.
Yeah,
right?
Let's talk a little bit about the business community, because in a state of emergency, the businesses, they have to shut down.
They do, to get the employees home, get them off the streets.
And to keep people from leaving their home to go do things. Like, I'm not going to go to Rocket and get a coffee if Rocket has to be closed. But there's a downside to that.
Well, basically, people still need food, and you don't know how everybody prepared at the end of the day for the particular storm. Keep in mind, earlier on in the week, as we led up to the storm, I think the forecast was calling for 30 centimeters, and then the next day it was 30 for 60. Then it was maybe 60 to 75, and now we're up to 93. So I think a lot of us got caught off guard as individual residents. But at the end of it all, as you recover from state of emergency, I don't think you just draw lines in the sand. We felt we had to open our business community early for most of the day. So we picked 6 a.m. That allowed, the warehousing people to get their trucks full and then ultimately take food to the grocery stores so that they could stock up. We settled on 9 p.m. in terms of our interim state of emergency, because our crews change at 8 o'clock. So when the crews are going out at 8 o'clock to get back on the streets, we wanted to guarantee that there was no traffic on the roads. It wasn't just about parking, no cars. This way we could do the cleanup a lot faster. The average operator will tell you, when they're trying to do snow blowing and there's one car in the way on one street, that can hold up the operation for half the night. And other resources like tow trucks and other services like that were in great demand. So it was hard to just call up a tow truck and say, can you tow a car?
So when you're having a discussion, say with not with CBS, because it's sort of irrelevant because you're not as adjacent, but you share streets with Paradise and St. John's.
We do, yes.
And that gets a little bit awkward, because I can remember shortly after St. John's was still in a full state of emergency.
Yes.
You had interim lifts, and Paradise had interim lifts.
Right.
And I was dropping my little girl and her mother off to a friend in Paradise, and that was clear till midnight.
Yeah.
I made the assumption that was true for Mount Pearl also. And I got pulled over on Commonwealth Avenue. And I was with a friend, and he like the police, he was great, by the way. He was wonderful. And it was It was RNC.
Yeah.
And he said, "So, what are you doing?" I'm like, I'm just going to feed my dogs. What am I? It was like 9:15. No, I needed to let them out to pee because they're older dogs. And he said, "It's a state of emergency."
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, but this is Mount Pearl." And he's like, "Yeah, I know. I know."
The further you got away from the downtown, the less snow that was received. So that's why the snow blowers that were offered in assistance came from Stephenville, Cornerbrook, Gander, Grand Falls.
Yeah.
I spoke with Mayor French, and they lifted, I think Sunday night, they lifted their state of emergency because they weren't in the same circumstances, say for example the downtown St. John's.
Yeah.
But for that matter,
there's also more places to put it because it's more sparse.
There is, and that's the challenge with, I think, downtown St. John's. But I'll let Mayor Breen, he's the best one to comment on that. But there was neighborhoods like Cowan Heights and Airport Heights and Kenmount Terrace that were, similar to ours, and we just felt we had to allow businesses to open so our people could, get to to take care of their basic needs. Not necessarily to just go shopping for storm chips, but to take care of other needs. We also lifted, on an interim basis, a state of emergency so that people could get to their loved ones. They could help them shovel out. Theoretically, under the original state of emergency, your mother could live, a kilometer away, and basically we were asking people to stay home. But meanwhile, we have somebody, not necessarily in distress, but they have an urgent need to get shoveled out so that they're safe in their house.
Yeah.
So that all factored into it. But I know we're going to have our own little look in the mirror when this is all said and done, and I know we'll sit down again. We always do with our regional partners. And from what I'm hearing, is communication seems to be, a part of the issue, in that even though you had multiple different types of states of emergency or multiple interim or lifting of the state of emergency, I think people got to realize when they're in their own community, they have to respect the states of emergency in other communities nearby.
Yeah.
Because no doubt there was a slow recovery. And for the hardest hit neighborhoods, say, for example, in the east end of St. John's, the downtown area, those hardest hit neighborhoods, which were also very challenging to plow, they were the last ones, I guess, to be ready for some sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
Council feels really good and very proud of all of our staff, and that just does not just mean the people who rode and drove the plows and the loaders, but everybody on staff who made a contribution towards the state of emergency, as well as in the subsequent blowback that's happening. We're real proud of all the volunteers and all the community groups that helped out with people shoveling out. Really proud of the Canadian Armed Forces were coming down and helping us dig out. Many of them were local people, but we know we also had some people that came from other parts of the country. And a big shout out, as always, to our business community who really stepped up with donations for our crews to keep them fed and keep them going. So we're all very proud.
Yeah. I mean, Mount Pearl's got a feel. It does, like Mount Pearl has a vibe, and the Mount Pearl culture, we'll say, has sort of been on fire ever since we dropped our first album, like our first hit.
That's true too.
Like it's true.
I know what you refer to.
You're right.
Yeah.
So
the anthem.
That. It seems like people are paying more attention to like there used to be a Springfield Shelbyville thing, but it's really not anymore, and that's a good thing to see.
Yeah, but I liken it to, it's the community of Mount Pearl that should be proud, not just the organization. Now, we're really proud of the people that work at the organization, but we're really proud of the community, how it came together, and it was a very challenging time. We're very lucky that we didn't have too many power outages. That could have really changed the dynamics. We never had to open a warming center, but I can tell you there was discussions behind the scenes. We were trying to figure out if we had to open a warming center, how would the streets in the state that they were in, how we were going to get those people
there
to the warming center. We've got warming centers, but people got to be able to get to them as well, right? So, those are things we'll look at, with an objective lens to see how we can improve, and we'll go forward on that basis, and we'll be talking to the provincial government. And I got to give them a big shout out too. Minister Bragg was in constant contact with us, and they showed leadership. Well, but they showed leadership because many of the emergency services in this part of the world are either provincial government services or they're regional in nature. I'm talking about fire, ambulance, policing. And you need a team of people. So they had an operations center created, and all the communities had representatives there in addition to what the government also provided too. Now, a lot of people have the perception that there's a lot of politicians in that room, but that's not the case. You know, we had our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works, Jerry Antle, there on the phone calls initially, and our Director of Community Development, Jason Collins, was sitting in. So that room was full of professionals, making sure that the right decisions were made, not for any political expediency, but to make sure that the entire region rebounded from an unsafe place to a safe place, restore emergency services, restore basic services, and now we're getting ready for we're blowing back so we can get ready for the next storm.
I really like, and I think the audience will also appreciate how you separated politicians from professionals there so clearly.
Yeah, and I don't mean to malign any politicians, but there is that perception.
Yeah,
hey?
sure.
You know, we have very good staff in all of the communities, and they, you know, whether they're CAOs or directors or safety people, they all stepped up basically and worked together. Yeah.
Final thoughts, Mayor Dave?
Final thoughts. Well, we're not out of the woods yet, and we talk ultimately about the impact of the storm. And that impact wasn't just 1 or 2 weeks in January. We are going to be dealing with this storm for the next 2 months, because every time we get about 15 to 20 centimeters, we've still got nowhere to put it.
True.
So we'll scrape it off the road, we'll salt the roads, we'll push all the snow back to the side, and guess what's coming out next? The blowers.
Yeah.
So let's give those mechanics a big pat on the back and keep her rolling.
Go Mechanics, go Mount Pearl, go Dave Acker. Thank you very much, sir. Always a pleasure.
You too, thank you. Good to see you. Cheers.
You're watching Rogers TV, St. John's.
God will protect us. She is our strength. She is our light.
Did you say Guyon?
Of course. Better than any drug. We'd also add a lot of drugs, so it was...
I figure we get them to do one of their classic circles.
Yes, they seem to want to do that a lot.
You're watching Rogers TV, St. John's.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. So, Dave Acker, what a guy, hey? I always have a good time when we get together. And I think you should know that he bought me that coffee. So, I mean, that was really nice of him. He took so long talking that it actually went cold. But anyway, that's enough about him. Let's talk about Frosty and the Frosty Festival. It is a wonderful winter festival in the city of Mount Pearl. They do a whole lot of stuff over a whole lot of period of time. And I don't think this year they're going to have to cancel any events on account of not having enough snow. If anything, it might be the other way around. So I had a chat, went to the glacier, and spoke to Renee Pendergast. She's the vice chair of the festival board of directors, and here is what she had to say about this year's Frosty Festival. Having lots of fun hanging out in Mount Pearl today, talking to the mayor, now talking to Renee Pendergast. Renee, you're the vice chair of the Frosty Festival committee, right?
Correct.
So planning, execution, all of those things.
Absolutely.
And we're at the glacier here in Mount Pearl. And I guess the reason for that, well, let's be really, really honest. The reason we're at the glacier is because we tried to do it outside in St. David's Field, and it was way too cold.
And too windy.
And way too windy. So we were like, where can we go inside to get warm? And we were like, yeah, an ice rink.
And what better place than the glacier?
That makes sense, right? So, but also you have a lot of stuff that's going to happen at the glacier, right?
A lot of our events happen here at the glacier.
Yeah, so
correct.
let's talk about some of that.
Well, we have over 80 events in 12 days. There is something for everyone.
Yes.
You know, we start off, our opening event is February 5th, next Wednesday, and that is our parade of lights and our lighting of our cauldron.
And I'm going to MC.
And you're emceeing the
it's
event.
like 3 or 4 years in a row. I always have a lot of fun because there's so many kids that come out and like they group together and friends. Like this group dresses like this with like their hockey jerseys, and these guys are all covered in like a theme for a certain kind of lights, and there's awards, and it's a whole lot of fun.
It is. It starts at O'Donnell High School. It's being sponsored by Rogers.
Yay!
Yay! And
let's face it, is the only reason that I get to be on stage.
No, we love you, MC. And it starts from O'Donnell at 6:30, and we march to St. David's Field, and at St. David's Field is where all the activities and the lighting of the cauldron happens. We have loads of games, we have barbecues, Wonderbolt Circus will be there performing.
hot chocolate,
Absolutely.
stuff like that.
There is something for everybody
And
at
a
that
few
event.
politicians are going to go on and on and on about some stuff.
Absolutely.
But then after that happens, it'll be about the kids.
It will absolutely be about, and some adults. It'll be about the adults.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for good weather.
Absolutely. We have lots of snow.
Freezing last year.
It was cold.
Yeah, so there's a lot of logistics that go around this actually, because on the heels of all that stuff, all that storm and everything, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleared away.
Absolutely. We have a lot of
Yeah.
snow clearing happening
Yeah.
here in the city, especially at St. David's. And big shout out to the city.
Yeah.
They have been very supportive in getting that snow clearing completed for us.
Yes,
You know, we
that's-
know roads are
We know
important.
they did a good job. That's
Yeah.
enough about that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some more of the events. I know that there's lots of stuff for kids, like
Absolutely.
Frosty's birthday party, and there's all of those things. But there's also like an over the top kind of like a trivia sort of game.
Here's Battle of the Brains.
Battle of the Brains,
Battle of the
yeah,
Brains,
yeah.
which is very popular.
Yeah.
Like you said, we have a lot of kids events and
Yeah.
children's events, such as Dominion's Frosty's Birthday Bash. We have MUN sponsoring our big opening concert here
Yeah.
at the Glacier.
Oh,
with
who's do we anybody?
Women
any
Are
good?
Rock. Women Are Rock.
Women Are Rock.
Jamming through the decades with Women
Yes.
Are Rock. And some friends, and some of those friends are, people who've grown up here in Mount Pearl, the city of Mount Pearl, so we're really excited
Yeah.
about that. Like
There's going to be a little bit of hockey too.
a little bit of hockey, the Kentucky Cup.
There's a history to the
There's a
Kentucky
history,
Cup.
there's O'Donnell High School versus the Senior High Huskies, which is always goes over very well. Alumni game.
Which one are you?
I'm an O'Donnell alumni, I have to say, go Patriots, go. But, I have to be very neutral for
Well,
this
maybe
one.
we'll edit out for that.
But we also have lots of adults.
Yeah, so there's like a wine.
We have the wine
tasting,
show.
there's a beer.
And this year we
Yes.
have our beer fest.
I'm
The local crafters
excited
here in
about
the
that.
province are coming. We've got a great turnout of those coming out and showcasing their products. And we're very excited about that. So those are more of the adult
In exchange
types of
for,
events.
for hosting the cauldron lighting and the parade of lights, I was told that I get free passes to the wine tasting and the beer with like a bottomless cup. Is
Absolutely.
that true?
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Absolutely.
It's on camera now. Used to not. It's on camera now.
Absolutely.
It is. It's it. So what are you personally super excited about with Frosty Festival? This is like almost 40 years
It
now.
is nearly 40 years. This event is just spectacular. It takes, a big team
Yeah.
to launch this event. We have a great board, but of course, we have, over 30 community groups involved in this at the City of Mount Pearl. We have over 600 volunteers coming
Wow.
out to help us with this. They're invaluable. It's certainly 600 volunteers. There's one thing I can say about Mount Pearl is that when we do a call for volunteers to come help, not just with the festival, but of anything,
Yeah.
it's been
There's such a
huge
community
success.
feel,
There
like a family
really
sort of
is.
feel about Mount Pearl.
And the best thing about the festival is that while it's housed in Mount Pearl and the events happen in the city of Mount Pearl, it is for everybody.
Yes.
It's not just for the community of Mount Pearl. We're calling on all communities, surrounding areas to come out, embrace winter. It's coming with a bang, and how best than to come out to the festival events.
Well, I remember last year, maybe even the year before, you had things that you had to cancel.
Yes, there's been a
because
few
you
years.
didn't have snow.
Absolutely. We had to cancel some of the snow-oriented
Don't
events.
think that'll be a problem.
That's not
this
going to be
time
a
around?
problem this year.
No, I don't think
We
so.
have snowshoe events, and we
Yeah.
have snow yoga. So there's lots.
Snoga.
Snoga. Absolutely. We even have a dog walk for those who want to come out with your furry friends.
Yeah.
Hosted by and sponsored by Critter and Things.
Excellent.
So there literally is
Amazing.
something for everybody.
Frosty Festival, something for everybody. Go to frostyfestival.ca
.ca.
and look up all of the stuff. Come out, have fun, and maybe I'll see you. Well, when you watch this, it'll be Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Renee.
Bye.
All right, girls.
Mom, you said it's played again.
Workplace injuries hurt the most at home.
Sometimes, for a wish to come true, it takes a kingdom, because together is stronger. Tied tight, united we stand, in honor of one child's wish, to fuel the fire that will grant many more. Join the kingdom.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Whew, all about the Pearl, right? I told you, Frosty Festival sounds absolutely amazing. And tomorrow night, we get to kick it all off. So tomorrow, Wednesday, February the 5th, at St. David's Field, which I learned the cauldron in the middle of St. David's is actually the very geographical center of the entire city of Mount Pearl. So that's really cool. Now, Rogers is a big community partner, as everybody knows, and here, Rogers TV we're a main sponsor of the Cauldron Lighting and the Parade of Lights. I myself am going to be emceeing this event tomorrow, Wednesday, February the 5th. We're going to have all the students dress in, it's going to be a parade of lights. They're going to have light-up costumes. They're going to come from O'Donnell and march on down in a parade into the field. There's going to be contests. There's going to be awards. There's going to be food. There's going to be hot chocolate. We're going to have entertainment. Wonderful Circus is going to be there with a fire show, which we're going to need because it's supposed to be cold. But I'm really excited about it. Rogers is really excited about it. Mount Pearl is really excited about it. And we hope that you come out tomorrow night to join us. Thank you very much for watching Out of the Fog tonight. And we'll see you next week. And hopefully tomorrow.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.